All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are taking a deep dive into a really cool system called Mapas. That's short for Multi-Agent Procurement Automation System. And what it is, really, is a blueprint for how a team of digital agents, not just one program, but a whole team, can automate the ridiculously complex world of corporate purchasing.
So let's just start with the core problem, right? Picture this. You're in charge of buying everything a massive company needs to function. You are juggling suppliers from all over the world, prices that change by the minute, different currencies, and a whole mountain of compliance rules. It is a puzzle with a million moving parts. So how on earth do you keep a system like that running without it all falling apart?
While the answer Mapas comes up with is actually pretty elegant. See, instead of just throwing more people at the problem, the idea is you build a dedicated, automated team to run the system for you. This mind map here gives you a fantastic bird's-eye view of the whole architecture we're about to get into. The key takeaway? It's not about one giant, monolithic program. It's about a group of specialists, or agents, each with a very specific job.
Okay, so let's really dig into that puzzle. Because before we can appreciate how Mapas solves it, we have to understand just how tricky this whole thing really is.
You know, at its heart, procurement is this constant tug-of-war. On one hand, you have to keep a steady supply of materials coming in so production never ever stops. But at the exact same time, you've got to get the lowest possible cost. And you have to do all of that while managing financial risks and staying compliant with every single regulation out there. It's a high-wire act where one wrong move can cost a fortune.
So, looking at all that complexity, the folks behind Mapas decided to step back and design a totally new way of thinking about the problem.
And this quote just perfectly sums up their entire philosophy. The two magic words here are transparent and deterministic. Transparent means every single decision is clear, it's logical, you can see how it was made. And deterministic means it's repeatable. There's no black box AI making a wild guess. And that multi-agent architecture bit, it just means breaking that huge problem down into smaller, manageable jobs for our specialized agents.
Now this is so important. The project's guiding principle was correctness over scale. So instead of trying to throw massive, messy production data at it from day one, they started smaller, with a simpler, cleaner dataset. You see, the goal wasn't to build the biggest system right away. It was to build a perfectly auditable and correct one first. Because that foundation of trust and reliability, that's everything.
All right, so how does this thing actually work? Well, it's time to meet the digital team that makes Mapas tick. There are 5 of these specialized agents, and each one plays a totally critical role in solving that big procurement puzzle.
First up, we've got the inventory agent. I want you to think of this agent as the lookout on a ship's mast. Its one and only job is to constantly watch inventory levels, and it's squarely focused on the supply part of that balancing act. It figures out exactly what the business needs to buy to keep the lights on and the machines running. And here's how it does it, with a simple, totally deterministic formula. It just takes what you plan to use, adds a safety buffer, that's the reorder level, and then subtracts whatever you already have in stock. The result is the exact number of units you need to buy. It's simple, it's auditable, and it makes sure you never run out of what you need.
Okay, so once we know what we need to buy, the buyer agent jumps in. This agent is the negotiator. It's laser-focused on the cost piece of our puzzle. Its mission is to find the absolute best vendor. But, and this is important, it doesn't just look at the sticker price. It calculates something called the total cost of ownership, or TCO.
And that TCO model is seriously comprehensive. I mean, look at this. It's factoring in everything. The price of the material, of course, but also currency exchange rates, shipping, insurance, taxes, import duties. But check out that last one, early payment discount. This is such a smart real-world detail. The agent can actually spot chances to save money by paying a supplier early. That's not just buying smart, that's managing cash flow.
Now, speaking of foreign exchange, that brings us to our third agent, the currency agent, or the team's financier. If the best supplier happens to be overseas, this agent handles the risk and compliance parts of the deal. It does the currency conversion, it looks at the exchange rates, and it gets all the payment instructions ready. It's basically the bridge connecting the procurement team to the finance department.
So, with all these numbers flying around, who's making sure the math is always perfect? Well, that's the job of the calculation agent. Think of it as the team's auditor. Every single calculation, the TCO, the FX conversions, those discount formulas, it all goes through this one agent. This is the secret sauce that makes sure every number is precise, deterministic, and totally reproducible. It's what makes the whole system trustworthy. And finally, we have the coordinator agent. This is the orchestrator, the project manager of the whole operation. It doesn't do any of the math itself. Its only job is to make sure every other agent does its task in the exact right sequence. It's the conductor making sure the whole symphony plays in perfect harmony.
So now that we've met the whole team, let's take a look at how that coordinator agent puts them all to work in a perfectly synchronized process.
The workflow itself is just beautifully logical. It's a straight line. First, the inventory agent says, hey, we need something. Then the buyer agent crunches all the numbers and says, okay, this is the best vendor. After that, the currency agent gets the money ready. And then, and this is so important, the whole process pauses and waits for a human to give the thumbs up at key moments.
And you might be asking, how do we know for sure that everything's happening the way it's supposed to? Well, the system is built for what's called total observability. There's a logging plugin, which means every single action is recorded. There's an in-memory session service, which lets you literally replay an entire purchasing session, like watching a video, to see exactly what happened. And all the data is validated at every step. Nothing is left to chance.
And that brings us to what might be the most important part of Mapas' design. This isn't about blind runaway automation. No, this is all about intelligent automation with a human being who is firmly in the driver's seat.
You see, the system has 3 mandatory human-in-the-loop, or HIL checkpoints built right in. These are hard stops. First, a person has to sign off on the order and the chosen vendor. Then, a person has to approve the purchase of any foreign currency. And finally, a person gives the final OK to actually send the payment to the supplier.
And just to be super clear, these aren't optional. They are hard-coded into the process. They're designed to mirror real-world business rules and to make sure that while the agents are doing all the heavy lifting and the number crunching, the strategic control, the final say, always stays with a human. This is what safe, responsible automation looks like.
This quote really is the perfect way to wrap up what Mapas is all about. It works because of these 3 pillars. You have structured roles, where each agent has one clear job to do. You have controlled communication, so they talk to each other in a very specific, orderly way. And you have that deterministic logic, which means every outcome is based on predictable, repeatable math.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? We've just walked through a blueprint for a digital team that can manage one of the most complex jobs in any business. So, if this model works for something like procurement, what other complex, high-stakes corporate functions are ready to be run by their own team of dedicated, transparent, and auditable digital agents? The possibilities are really something to think about.